So we've been looking into this whole Delhi population thing, and honestly, some of the stuff you've been sending my way is, it's a little mind-blowing. We got to break this down.
It is pretty wild, yeah.
Way beyond just, oh, big city, lots of people. Like, we got to go deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
Get to the core of what's actually going on. Like, this is a whole different level of complexity.
It is complex. And I think one of the biggest things right off the bat from everything you've sent me, it's the sheer size of it we're talking about. I mean, Delhi has over 32 million people as of last year, 2024.
32 million.
Over 32 million. More than Australia. A whole country. That's more people in one city than an entire developed country. It's a lot to get your head around.
It is. It's like, okay, wow, that's a lot of people. But then it's like, wait, hold on. How did this even happen? What got us to this point?
Exactly.
And then the big question everyone's wondering is what happens now? What's life actually like in a place like that? And is there anything that can be done to, make it better? So that's our mission today.
Sounds like a plan.
Dig into all of that. All right, let's start with the numbers themselves. You mentioned 32 million. Like, what does that even mean in terms of growth year on year?
Well, the annual increase is just about 700,000 people.
700,000.
Every year.
Yeah.
I mean, try to visualize that. It's like adding a city the size of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Every year. Just boom, more people. Constantly growing.
It just keeps going up.
Up and up.
Right.
And it's not even just the total number. It's how packed together everybody is.
Right.
We're talking density here. Delhi has something like 29,000 people per square kilometer.
Okay, now I've been to New York.
Yeah.
That's a pretty dense place.
New York's like, what, 11,000 maybe in that same area? So you can kind of start to imagine.
Double. More than double.
It's a different reality.
Yeah. And I think this is where we get to the why. Like, why are all these people coming to Delhi? Is it just because it's, the capital, or what's going on?
Okay, so the biggest thing by far is migration. Delhi has this huge economy, over $120 billion a year.
120 billion. It's massive. So obviously there are jobs there. And it's not just the fancy high-paying stuff. A lot of it is informal work. So you have this constant flow of people looking for a better life, whether it's more money or better schools or, decent health care. It's a magnet.
Pulling people in.
Yeah.
But wait, isn't Delhi also just, people having kids? Like regular population growth on top of all the new arrivals?
Oh, for sure. I mean, migration's the biggest factor, but it's not the whole story. The birth rate's still relatively high, and people are living longer, so that adds to it, too.
Makes sense.
Oh, and there's also this thing called urban sprawl, which basically means the city's just growing outwards, gobbling up land.
Expanding.
Exactly. So that means extending infrastructure, putting in more water lines, more electricity, and it can be tough to keep up.
So it's like a three-pronged attack almost. You've got new people coming in, you've got people already there having kids, and you've got the city itself getting bigger.
It's a lot to manage. Okay, so we've laid out the big picture. Now let's get down to the street level. What does all of this actually mean for, the average person trying to live in Delhi?
So think about this. We'll call him Rahul. Rahul wakes up at like 5 in the morning to beat the rush on public transit.
5 a.m.?
Yeah, because it is packed. And he could easily spend 3 hours getting to work, 3 hours back, just commuting.
Oh my gosh.
And rent.
Forget about it.
Even a tiny apartment can eat up half your income.
Half your paycheck.
And you might not even have running water all the time. It's a grind.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not just about the commute and the rent. It's things like healthcare. Is that affected too?
Big time.
Yeah.
Think about it. 32 million people, and you've got maybe 1 hospital bed for every 1,000 residents. So if you get sick, it's not easy getting the care you need. And the air quality is awful. It's often at severe levels. Over 400 on the air quality index.
That's hazardously bad, right?
Yeah, you're risking respiratory problems just being outside.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking about the environment. Like, what about their water supply?
Right.
I mean, look at the Yamuna River. It's basically a sewer at this point.
Right.
Full of sewage and industrial waste.
That's horrible.
It really highlights how all these people are putting a strain on everything. Like, we're talking about carrying capacity.
Yeah.
How much can the city actually handle before it just breaks down?
And there's actually a quote from a hypothetical Urgalaner named Dr. Anjali Mitta.
Yeah.
Saying that the infrastructure in Delhi was built for 10 million people.
10 million.
And now it's trying to handle 3 times that.
Oh.
She's basically warning that if things don't change pretty drastically, the whole system could collapse. So that sounds pretty dire. What are some potential solutions? Are there any ideas out there that could actually help?
Well, the government has a plan called the Delhi Master Plan 2041. And the main idea there is to decongest the city.
Decongest.
Basically, they want to encourage people to move to satellite cities, places like Noida and Gurugram.
You like spreading things out a bit.
Exactly. Create new centers for people to live and work and kind of take the pressure off of central Delhi.
Okay, and there's also that smart cities mission thing. What's that supposed to do?
So that one's all about using technology to improve things, like better traffic management systems, smarter ways to handle waste disposal, that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's been some pushback on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some people are saying it's not happening fast enough.
And it doesn't really address the core problem, which is too many people.
Exactly.
So what are the other ideas out there, like beyond what the government's doing? Are there other things people are suggesting?
Well, some experts are talking about decentralization.
Decentralization.
But on a bigger scale. Like, what if instead of focusing on those satellite cities right next to Delhi, what if we invest in places further out?
Further out.
Yeah. Like make Meerut or Jaipur into tech hubs or, develop manufacturing there. Give people a reason to move to those places instead of all flocking to Delhi.
Diversify the options.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And what about the people themselves? Like, can they do anything, or is this all on the government?
Oh, no, people absolutely have a role to play. Like raising awareness about the consequences of population growth, promoting sustainable living. That's all important. There's this idea of like a one child, one tree campaign.
One child, one tree.
The idea is, to connect family planning with taking care of the environment, encourage that sense of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
But changing people's minds is hard work, especially when it comes to things like cultural norms and personal choices. It takes time.
So even with the best intentions, it's a slow process.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of challenges, but are there any positive developments, any bright spots where Delhi is finding ways to cope with all of this?
There's some cool things happening. Take the Delhi Metro, for example.
The Metro?
It carries 6 million passengers a day.
6 million people a day on one train system.
It takes a huge load off the roads, which means less traffic, less pollution. It's a big win.
That's fantastic. And are there examples of like smaller scale things, like grassroots initiatives?
Absolutely. There's this great example in Dwarka called the Stilt Plus Initiative. Residents there got together and set up rainwater harvesting systems.
Rainwater harvesting.
They're actually providing water for 5,000 homes now. Pretty amazing, right?
Very cool. Very resourceful. And there's a bunch of new startups, too, coming up with all kinds of creative solutions, like apps that help people share water resources when there are shortages.
Yeah, technology can definitely play a part.
And you mentioned before looking at other cities that have dealt with density like Tokyo and Seoul. What can Delhi learn from them?
Both of those cities have managed to handle huge populations really effectively. They did a lot of things right. Investing in public transportation early on so they could move people around easily, building up instead of out, with high-rise apartments, and thinking long-term with their urban planning.
So they were prepared.
Yeah. And it shows that high population density doesn't automatically equal disaster. Delhi can learn from those successes. But it's going to take commitment from the government, from city planners, from everyday people. Everyone needs to be on board.
So I guess going back to our original question, is Delhi a ticking time bomb?
Honestly, it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's some serious issues that need to be addressed, like yesterday. The strain on resources, the infrastructure, the environment. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But there's also hope. There are people working on solutions. There's innovation happening. There's a spirit of resilience. It's really going to come down to how quickly and effectively everyone can pull together to make those changes happen.
And even though the big picture can feel overwhelming, it sounds like even small individual actions can add up.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Things like conserving water, using public transport, supporting sustainable policies. It all makes a difference.
So it's about that sense of collective responsibility. Well, this has been an incredibly insightful look into a really important issue.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And for you listening, thinking about all this, the scale of the challenges, the potential solutions, the incredible resilience of the people, what do you think? What's the one thing that could make the biggest difference in Delhi in the next 5 years? It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Because the choices we make today shape the cities of tomorrow.
That's for sure.